Hi, I'm Diana from griefgirlfriend.com, and today I wanted to talk to you about complicated grief. It can be so complicated that I'm not going to talk about the whole definition today, so tune in for other parts. I'll let you know when they come up. But today I wanted to talk about what does it really mean. And basically what it means is you're grieving over a longer period of time. Or sometimes you might hear people refer to it as pathological grief or being stuck in grief. So what does that mean when we talk about grieving over a longer period of time? Now, for those of you who are more familiar with me, you know that I don't like timelines, and I don't think we have like that magical year to get over it. I think everybody does grief in their own way for a variety of reasons, and sometimes that can take longer than others. And oftentimes we feel like we're doing it, trying to do it quicker to meet the expectations of other people. For conversation's sake, I always use that 1-year timeline just so that we have something to compare it to. We definitely know that that first year can be full of difficulties as we celebrate or remember or go through the first without our loved one. So we're talking about like the first birthday without our loved one, the first anniversary, the first holiday, etc. So when we talk about grieving over a longer period of time, if we see somebody who has experienced acute grief symptoms over a year period, and now I want to be really careful when we talk about that because it's not uncommon to hear that the second year can be more painful than the first year. So I'm really talking about years after the loss that we're still grieving acutely. We seem to be unable to move forward. We're not able to take joy in life. We're not able to have happy, joyful relationships. We're not able to hold jobs. We're surrounded by painful reminders. That can be a complicated grief. So if you think that you're having a complicated grief process, I would ask you to look at where you think you're getting yourself stuck in your grief. I think that's a much kinder way to say that as opposed to pathological grief, because to me pathological grief almost sounds like there's something wrong with you, and we know that just because you're grieving doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. So I'm thinking more in terms of unstuck. And one of the things that I would ask you to look for is what I call the triple threat of grief. So look for, are you angry, are you guilty, or are you regretful for something about your grieving process, something about your loved one, something about their dying process. A lot of times if we're dealing with anger, we're talking about we're angry at God, we're angry at the medical community, we're angry because maybe at our loved one because they didn't go and get a second opinion, or they didn't change doctors, or they hid their symptoms. Sometimes we can be mad at ourselves that we didn't pursue something for them or insist hard enough. And guilt, we do the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and so that's a normal human reaction that we go back to, but usually there's a lot of things that we do not have to feel guilty for. So I'd ask you to think about that, and then regret. And there's lots of things that we can do to become unstuck in grief. So whether that's to forgive ourselves, to express our anger, to write a letter to the loved one so that we can get rid of that regret. We can actually have conversations with the loved one. And a lot of times what I'll say is we're a lot harder on ourselves than we are on other people. So put yourself into a situation where if a friend came to you in the same situation that you're in, how would you treat them? What would you say to them? And I'd like you to treat yourself the same way. So in other words, be your best friend. Be as kind to yourself as you would be to your friend. And try to get yourself unstuck from the grief so that you can move forward. So that's it for today. Tune in. I'm going to try for next week, and we can talk about disenfranchised grief and how that can complicate our grieving process. If you'd like your own grief, it's complicated t-shirt, you can find it at my website at griefgirlfriend.com. Thank you.